Care. Republicans in the upper chamber think that they can kill the fixes bill, the bill that's going to have to be taken care of by reconciliation, based on certain flaws in it. Here to explain is Senator Orrin Hatch. He's a member of the Senate Health Committee and the Judiciary Committee, and he's my guest now. Senator Hatch, thank you so much for being here. All right, so, I thought the conventional wisdom was once the House passed it, it was basically a foregone conclusion in the Senate if they had those 51 votes. How do you plan to shut it down?
Well, a lot of people felt that way, but if the parliamentarian rules in accordance with the reconciliation law, he's got to uphold a point of order because they actually have been violating it. There are a number of points of order that can be raised here. One is on $1 billion in appropriations that should not be in reconciliation. Another is that in the so-called Cadillac plan that they've deferred in favor of the unions till 2018, that'll never be used, and they used it as a revenue raiser. Some of that money comes right out of Social Security, and that is an absolute prohibition by the reconciliation rules.
And so let me just stop you there to try to clarify. You tell me if I've got it right. So you're saying that only certain things can be done on a reconciliation vote, meaning 51 senators instead of 60. And you think the Democrats have reached too far in the bill they're about to send over to you?
Well, the reconciliation bill rules itself say that you cannot do anything on Social Security, and here they actually use Social Security funds. Plus, you can't do certain appropriations, and here they have $1 billion in appropriations that I think flies in the face of reconciliation. And there are other points of order that I think will be made that should be upheld. Now, let's understand something. If the parliamentarian rules right, then the vice president could still overrule it, but it would be a purely political act, and I think would cause an awful lot of bad feelings.
I'm sorry, I thought you were done there. So now the House bill will come over to you on reconciliation, and you're going to raise all these objections with the parliamentarian, and you're hoping that he will say, you're right, these points are out of order. And if he says that, what would happen if Vice President Joe Biden does not intervene? The bill goes back to the House? They have to vote on it again?
Well, then the bill would have to go back to the House. We'd have to vote on it again. And there are some other amendments that are going to come up that really, I think, it's going to be very difficult for Democrats to vote against. And, one of the amendments is to have this receive expedited review by the Supreme Court. I can't imagine why anybody would vote against that amendment, because we ought to all want to find out whether these mandates in this bill are constitutionally sound. And they're not. When the government can force you to buy something you don't want to buy, that'd be the first time in history that the United States government will have done that unconstitutional act. So there are a number of things here that this is not over by any means, but you never know. They may get the parliamentarian not to act in an appropriate way.
But don't you think that the Democrats would have seen this coming and would have sat down with Mr. Fruman, who's a Senate parliamentarian, and said, okay, let's just chat about how we plan on styling this reconciliation bill. Does this look like it's going to square with the rules, Mr. Fruman? And presumably he gave them a yes because they styled it the way they did.
Well, I think that they have sat down with Mr. Fruman. I think Mr. Fruman is an honest man. I'm hoping that he will uphold the points of order as he should. But we'll have to wait and see. This is such a hard thing. The thing that bothers me is that the Democrats don't seem to be concerned about the legacy we're leaving to our children of huge, huge debt. They're more concerned about the future of this presidency. And frankly, that shouldn't be the issue. The issue ought to be, what are we doing to our kids, our grandkids, in the future, settling with debt that we know we can't pay?
They deny that. They say the Congressional Budget Office says that this is actually going to reduce the deficit, not add to it.
Oh, wait a minute. There's $371 billion in the doctor fix that isn't in this bill, and that's at present worth. That may amount to a lot more than that over 10 years. So they haven't done it there. Secondly, keep in mind the CBO, they have to come up with the figures based upon the papers that the Democrats have given them. The CBO, I think, has done an honest job. But, for instance, having the Cadillac plan in there, there's $52 billion in Social Security in the Cadillac plan that is supposed to offset some of the costs here, and we know that's never going to materialize.
Oh, I know, but nobody understands what you're saying, Senator. You're too in the weeds on this. So to put it in terms we can understand, what do you mean, the Cadillac and the Social Security? Bottom line that for us in language we get.
Well, you're right. I'm talking too much in technical terms. The fact of the matter is they have double counting in here. They have spending that will never occur. Should I say savings that will never occur. They are taking money from the so-called Social Security Trust Fund. We all know there isn't one, but it's coming out of Social Security, which already is in very great difficulty. They're taking $500 billion out of Medicare, which is $38 trillion in unfunded liability as we stand here. They're going to increase taxes probably $658 billion. It went up $158 billion, by the way. They're going to mandate that's if people can't afford to buy this insurance, you're going to have to get socked 2.5%, 2.4% of your gross income. They're going to mandate on businesses with 50 or more employees if they don't, if they can't provide health insurance, it's going to cost up to $3,000 per employee.
And let me ask you this, Senator Hatch. You know, for those who would say this looks like a desperate stunt by a party that lost this debate, and that there's no way you're going to be able to stop this thing from going through at this point, how do you respond?
Well, the odds are certainly in their favor on this. There's no question about it. But to me, we've got to stop this one way or the other or get some reason in it. But what they're doing is Europeanizing America. There's no use kidding about it. And this is just a step towards a single-payer system, or in other words, Europeanization of America, or you really want it in blunt terms, socialism. And that's what they're doing, and they're doing it with 1/6 of the American economy in ways that really are not going to increase competition and bring costs down, but in ways that are going to increase premiums, raise costs, and of course have less health care for people. And keep in mind, of the 32 million people who are going to get this additional health care, 16 million of them are going to be shoved into Medicaid. Who's going to pay for all that? Right now, they say the federal government will, but it can't. It doesn't have the money. So the states, can they do it? And the answer is no. All
right. Well, Senator Orrin Hatch, we're going to be watching your chamber now. Now it heads over to you folks, and we're going to see what happens. Senator Hatch, thanks so much for being here.
Well, we'll do our best. Thanks to you, Megyn.
Well, so while Congress hotly debated the health care bill inside